Hello, and welcome to this session all about how to keep students engaged after your initial recruitment. SOA is offering this session as part of our Canvas series for a number of reasons, and we'll provide some introduction and background for that. We'll also cover some different avenues as well as some tips for the communication that seems to work best on campus to keep those interested. We'll offer some details in terms of building relationships with those that it benefits you and the organization. We'll talk about goal setting when it comes to this particular topic and offer some final tips. The reason why SOA wanted to create a session dedicated to this topic is that member retention and keeping folks engaged is one of the most common challenges across all types of student organizations, whether they're barrier-free or not, no matter what the activity type is. This is just a very common piece of feedback that students wish they had more resources on. So here we are. In terms of the cycle of new member involvement, even groups that you might think have a really niche area, they might represent a nationality or a culture where there's really only maybe 10 students in an undergrad population that fit that. Nevertheless, after an org fair, I usually ask, hey, how did it go? Particularly at the fall one, even some of those groups that have never had double-digit members will say, oh, it was great, we got 50 signups. Larger groups will say, yeah, we had like 200 people give us their email address. So feelings are really good after a high traffic event like that. There's a lot of new students that are exploring new things and they're eager to get involved. They don't want to miss out. However, what happens after that? Well, only a small percentage come to maybe the first info session or welcome event. Sometimes it's difficult to fit that into the schedule, or people didn't get all the information they needed. And then even after that, there's a smaller percentage of people that stay involved after that info session. Now, it's unrealistic for every single person that gives you their contact info or expresses interest in an org fair to be an aspiring exec board member or leader in your group. But we want to talk about what is within your control. The first question, though, is as you take this course, think about what is your organization's goal with regards to membership? In the history of your involvement, have there been big ideas that just never came to fruition because you didn't have enough people involved to pull it off? Is there a worry that your organization is a little fragile or on the brink, and you're really just hoping to maintain the level you're at to keep this thing going? Is there an opportunity coming up, whether it's putting together an additional event or some funding that you've received, where at the current personnel level, you just don't have what you need and you're looking for new folks? Or maybe you had a really big graduating class that was, more than 25% of your membership. Let's say it was 50%. And now you're worried that it's going to be challenging to find members to fill all those spots, especially when they're new. So identify in conjunction with other members on your board, hey, what are our goals for membership this year when it comes to numbers? One of the most important aspects of maintaining that engagement, of course, is communication out to your membership. Now, whether your group has general members that just like to stay in the know and jump on opportunities to be more involved or take on responsibility, or your group is just fully committed out, where every single member has some sort of role or title and a very clear chain of command of who's going to give them things to do or where their responsibility lies. Communication's key, and you likely already are aware of all of these communication avenues, but I want to share a little bit about each one. Of course, every single registered student org has an Instagram account and sometimes other social media platforms. Immediately after this course, and if you can take a note on this, go ahead and just look at your Instagram and other social media presence. Does it meet the needs that your group has? if there's an incoming student who's exploring different groups over the summer and they're interested in your group, does your social media suggest that you're an active group? Um, Now, of course, a lot of groups will use their social media to encourage visits during the org fair, whether that's with story content or posts. Um, and some groups will also use social media to get people to come to a welcome session or a Zoom. But if you don't already have a strategy of how you build member engagement through your social media, talk to your advisor about taking that on. It can give a little more content and substance to your social media output. In terms of email communication, the two most common routes are having a Northwestern listserv, particularly if your audience includes alumni or members of the community that have an interest in your group. And we have information in the Canvas course about how to set that up if you don't have one already. But the newest option is using Cats on Campus. Now, there's another session all about how to update the group's roster to make sure officers have proper access to different management tools and that membership is up to date. That is critical if you're planning to use Cats on Campus, and SOA highly encourages that. Some groups use designers like MailChimp. Cats on Campus has a very similar internal email designer. You're able to store files, logos, archive all of the communications you've already sent out. It also allows for scheduling and a custom audience. So if you want to use it to send updates to all members, that's fairly straightforward. If you have a communication that you only want to send to specific committee, if your roster is set up properly, that shows members that sit on different committees, that's very possible. And then, of course, there's group chats in Slack. And what I'll say about that is those can be helpful when you have an immediate need, like if you're all at an event and you don't have everyone's phone number, that can be a preferred avenue for, telling someone something needs to be brought to the stage, or we need an extra person out in the front of the house, or whatever the need is. But realistically, SOA has found that these type of platforms don't necessarily build a lot of engagement, and it's a place where newcomers, even if they're subscribed, just tend to be really passive and don't necessarily feel included. So a little more about that. In terms of the content for the communication that goes out, you want to have a summary of your most recent activities, maybe just a sentence or two. And if you're taking minutes at your exec meetings, maybe just include a highlight and then include a link to a shareable doc or PDF where people can see all the notes from that meeting. You'll certainly want to include the next opportunity for in-person engagement. So whether that's just telling a member as an individual, we'd like you to post something on your own personal social media or spread the word. If you're part of a fundraising campaign, there might be a fundraising activity you'll do as an individual or as a group. So whether that's a social event coming up, an exec thing that all members are invited to, whether it's business or otherwise, planning ahead and making sure these things are on people's radar is helpful. Now, even though most organizations, especially larger ones, are going to have a dedicated communications or PR or marketing chair, it can also be a way to build engagement to either invite contributions from others on what content goes into this regular communication. And it can also be a rotation. Maybe your communications or marketing director has editorial access, but there's committee members that work for them that draft these things. And it's really helpful for a leader to see which committee members seem to dedicate more time to this, and which really just kind of skate by on this responsibility. It's also helpful to set the expectation of how frequently are we sending this out? Is this going out every 2 weeks? Is it something we take care of immediately after an exec meeting? Knowing ahead what that schedule looks like is helpful for all involved. In terms of the actual opportunities for building these relationships, there's 3 pillars that SOA has. The first is to avoid any sort of clickiness in your group. It can be pretty overwhelming for someone that doesn't know a single other person to enter a room that has double digit or even triple digit folks that are all, chit chatting, seem to be reuniting, good friends. So make sure you're keeping a perspective on those that just, they're scrolling on their phone, they're by themselves, and just introduce yourself to them as a member of the organization and learn about their interests outside of the group. In some cases, we know that, especially when it's like a sports club or a hobby, of course, they have an interest in that. But treating people as more than just that dimension can really increase the connection. And also like connect newcomers to others. So if you're in a meeting for student government and you learn someone is from Nebraska, if you know of someone else from Nebraska, say, "Oh, have you met this person? Did you meet before here?" That can be a way to build that community as well, and they'll remember that they met at that student government meeting. So creating the opportunities are key beyond just maybe like the welcome or the info session. And so I think one of our favorite tips on this topic, if you're hosting a welcome or info session week one, to immediately host a social or bonding event that's open to newcomers as well. Now, I know funding is often a challenge, but there are just so many free opportunities on campus, whether it's going together as a group to a home athletics event, whether it's going to a free performing arts event on campus, or even when the weather's nice, just getting together out on the lakefront, the Cohen Lawn, or elsewhere, and just having folks bring their own snacks, beverages. Keep in mind that when it comes to first year students, they all live on campus. So making it in a location that's going to be convenient for them to get to, especially during the week. You can also solicit from newcomers through what their interests are. Hey, this person's really into, let's say, soccer. Maybe we can anchor an outing to go see Northwestern soccer, and we'll all get to know each other during the game a little bit better. Lastly, and this is something, even adults struggle with, take photos to capture those moments. Whether they're for social media or cats on campus or people just posting them on their own social media or for elsewhere purpose. Folks like to look back at these things and remember how much fun they had and how much they enjoyed themselves. Okay, starting to wrap up here. So as you set engagement goals, think about it this way. A group that is anchored around fundraising, they might say, well, our goal is to fundraise as much as possible. Well, goals need to be a little bit more concrete than that so that success can be identified and tracked. So when it comes to membership levels, having a goal that says we want to grow our membership as much as possible this year, not only is it realistic, but there's no definition to that. So maybe your engagement goal is around a specific number of folks who are active on your roster, or having all of your board roles filled for the next term, and just generally having folks prepared for more responsibility. This is something to discuss with the remainder of your board. You want to identify the purpose behind your engagement goals. So we talked about this a little bit at the intro. Is it about the ambition of the org not being realized due to a lack of personnel? Is it just trying to keep the org going for another year? Again, talk with others about this. And then who's responsible for it? Do you have someone in your organization that is dedicated to member engagement, that works with your communications and PR chair? And allow for goals that are within your control beyond just like membership numbers. So, for example, we're going to offer 3 opportunities a term that are bonding and welcome newcomers and all members to them. We're going to send a newsletter out every 2 weeks. So no matter what else is going on in the org, we'll make sure the inbox doesn't collect dust for folks on this topic. And there's also the extrinsic benefit of saying, I sent a newsletter 15 times throughout the school year with an audience of 100 folks. That's a bullet point that can go on a resume or can be related to a professional or grad school application. Saying we organized a bonding event and we had 50 people show up. These are the things that connect your involvement to that skill development worthwhile beyond your time at Northwestern. So to wrap up, sure, funding is always a problem, and most groups don't get all the funding that they're looking for to achieve all their dreams. But as mentioned, there's always free opportunities in Evanston and on campus to get people together to just get to know each other better. Um, Identify who in your organization takes the lead on member engagement. You can also connect with your advisor. They may have some perspective on this and certainly some history if they've been around a while to give you feedback on any sort of goals and plans you have. And lastly, on the topic of transition, always reassess, what events worked. Put in all the details you can so that your successor has that information. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure to take the quiz at the end of this section.